Hey guys, so I'm gonna go over my Stam Sorc build now. So we run 5 heavy, 2 medium for this build, and this build heavily leverages Clever Alchemist to get high burst potential, and we use Bone Pirate for the sustain. So on the jewelry, we'll start with we have 3 Bone Pirate, 2 weapon damage, and a Stam cost reduction glyph. This helps quite a bit with our sustain since we're in heavy and we don't get the cost reduction. We don't really need a recovery glyph though, because we have skills that actually provide us stam return as well as the Constitution passive from heavy armor, giving us stam back. Gives magic back too, which helps again with the skills they give us stam back. So the rest are weapon damage just to get more punch power and burst potential, etc. So on the body, gloves and belt, these are kind of the 2 important pieces to have in Bone Pirate. We also run 7 in pen. I'll touch on that in a minute. We want the belt and gloves because they're going to be the lowest armor overall, so just a bit of a min-maxing here. You can put them in other places if you want, but this is the way to get the most amount of armor out of the setup. So yeah, this is going to give us all of our sustain and a ridiculous amount of max stam. So you can see we actually have like pushing 35k stam. Well, 34k here. So that's quite a bit. It really helps with the sustain because of Dubious Camorran Throne, as well as the drink we use in order to activate Bone Pirate. So between the stam regen we get from the drink and the stam regen we get from Bone Pirate, we're sitting at a pretty decent 1560 stam recovery, which is really, really good, especially since we're a Stam Sorc and we get access to Dark Conversion, which is again going to provide us more stamina sustain. So Clever Alchemist. Now we run 2-handed and sword and board. So on the sword and board bar is the only place that we can have Clever Alchemist active. So you see we lose the 5 piece on the greatsword. So that means you're going to want to drink your potion on this bar. So the reason why we use this set over something maybe like Hundings or whatever is just because this gives us a lot of burst potential. So drinking a potion, bar swapping, dawn break, execute, you can kill a lot of people that way. It also allows us to run Villadrith or Bloodspawn or pretty much anything you want for a monster set. I prefer Villadrith and Bloodspawn actually. Different scenarios for each, but right now mainly just Villadrith to get more burst out of my Dawnbreakers because it's likely going to proc. And those 3 people that get hit are probably just going to be on the floor, just going to be dead. So the 7 in pen is kind of important. The reason why is because crit damage scales really well in Cyrodiil right now, and you need the impen to offset that a bit. So tri-stack glyphs on the head, chest, and pants. This is mainly just to get more max magicka and more max health. The stam's obviously great for a stam build, but we use max stam glyphs on the other stuff anyway. So here, this is just getting us up a little bit over 10k, or 11k rather, on the max magicka. And this allows us, because of the slight bit of magic recovery that you get naturally, plus Constitution passive for heavy armor, it allows you to cast like about 5 dark deals before you run out of magicka, which is really, really nice. It also gives us a little bit bigger buffer, so when we're streaking, we're not just completely out of magicka immediately. We can get like an extra streak in from having those 3 glyphs instead of just running max stam on everything, which is really nice. So yeah, great sword, main DPS. The glyph is pretty important, so you want the extra weapon damage. Now the reason why I use glyphs over poisons, especially on this build, is because poisons don't scale well against larger groups. So a poison's gonna make one person's life hell, but this glyph is going to buff Dawnbreaker after we do something like a crit rush, or a stampede rather, and make the Dawnbreaker hit that much harder against a group instead of just tearing one guy's life apart. The glyph here doesn't matter so much. This can be whatever you want. I don't really light or heavy attack on this bar, on the one-hand shield bar, very much. So this can be pretty much anything. I just did this for more tankiness against getting focused by people. Now the Clever Alchemist shield. So I run a tri-stack glyph here, again for more max magicka. Also the max health is nice, trying to be a little more tanky. But the reinforced is probably the most important part of the shield, just getting more armor to really supplement that tanky theme on the back bar, because we have a lot of healing with this build as well. So when you're blocking on this bar, the amount of armor you have plus block plus all the healing, like you become pretty much a fortress, even though you're not running like crazy overpowered tanking sets. You're very much a heavy armor DPS user. So that's pretty much the gear. I mean, you can take a look at the stats here. Like 27.5k health is pretty good. 35k stam is pretty good, or 34. Great stam recovery. Max magicka's at a good point where we don't have to worry about running out too fast with streak. We can get a couple in. Weapon damage goes really high when we're fully buffed. Like unbuffed, we're at 22, but fully buffed, if I drink a potion, get major brutality up. We are now at 3,500. This hits over 4k when this enchant fires as well, so that's really good. Fairly low weapon crit, but that's not that big of a deal because people are running a lot of impen anyway, but our reach is still pretty good with the crit damage we have, so when we do crit, we hit really hard. So yeah, let's get into skills now. So skills. So streak, this is key. Mobility is king in Cyrodiil, and streak, stampede, hurricane, and our potion all allow us to increase our mobility, which is really important. So one thing I do like to do is shriek, for the stun especially. First of all, you can use it as an escape mechanism. Some people are on your ass, you can just get away from them, you know, hurricane up, use line of sight, whatever. And you'll be good to get out of there. But when my group is engaging another group, I do like to streak through them. So oftentimes I'll either crit rush or just get right up in their grill, right in the front line, and then I'll streak through to the back. And I'll try and find some of the light armor targets, healers especially, and I'll try and, like, I don't know, give them a dizzying swing or a dawn break execute. Depends whether or not it's up, of course. Or just some of their light armor, you know, Magicka Sorcs, or people that are just planning on nuking some of our group as we come in, or when we engage. Those are the people I try and dawn break and hit first. So streaking through the group is going to help your group by stunning that whole group so they can drop ults as well. So you have that big AoE stun, and if you combine that with another person on your team using like an encase or the DK's talons to root them and then drop a negate, well, they're stunned, they're rooted, and they're negated. So your team's DPS ults are just going to usually just wipe that whole group. So streak is really, really key just for group support as well. All right. So back to the skills. Dizzying swing. Now this, it's a really good spammable for this build, but also it's just the main CC for when you're trying to focus a person down. You don't really need to, oftentimes I don't even find myself spamming this as much as I find myself spamming reverse slice. Now, it seems a little weird because this is our execute, but usually when you dawn break someone, they're at like 50% or lower because this is going to hit so hard from Clever Alchemist. So oftentimes this ends up becoming your spammable, and this is just a CC, which is really nice to have and hits really hard. So we just talked about that as well. So Stampede. Now I use this morph over Crit Rush because I know the other one does more damage, because if you Crit Rush from further away, it just that's the morph's ability. But this one's going to allow your dizzying swings to hit more reliably. Even if they're casting like Shuffle or Extended Ritual, things like that to purge the snare, you can just reapply it because there's no immunity to snares really. So this is a very strong ability to also let your group catch up to people. So if you can streak, if the group's running from you, you can streak up to them, stampede a guy in the back, stampede the guy in front of him, stampede the guy in front of him. They're all snared now, and your group's just going to mow them over. So it's a really good way to keep people from escaping pretty well too, from your whole group. And but the main focus is just to allow Dizzying Swing to hit more reliably because they can't just backpedal it and get away. Rally's a big heal. We don't actually use this so much for Major Brutality because we already get Major Brutality from Crit Surge anyway. This is mainly just for the heal, but the burst heal in particular. So, after this has been up for a while, you can activate it again and get like half your health bar back, which is really key. It's one of the 4 heals we have on this build for ourselves, so we're super, super tanky and can stay alive for a very long period of time because of all the healing we have. And then Dawnbreaker Smiting. This is the main ult. We do so much damage with this. When you proc Clever Alchemist, I'll show you again. This thing's got a 15.8k tooltip. It'll go over 16k tooltip when you proc your weapon, and if you crit, you're looking at really high damage crits. Like, this thing is going to take people to 30% or under by itself, and then Reverse Life is just going to mop them up. It hits so hard. Backbar Hurricane. So again, minor expedition to give you more mobility, as well as giving you the essential mitigation buffs, the physical and spell resist. And so the AoE damage here is important, the constant ticking damage, because this is what's proccing critical surge. So every time we deal a crit, we get 3,000 health back. So that's not normally, because we have such low weapon crit, it's not really going to proc a lot with our other skills, but because this is AoE and we're oftentimes in the middle of an enemy group, 3 or 4 people, maybe 5, maybe 12 around us, this thing's going to crit pretty often. Even though it doesn't do much damage, the point is it's constantly healing us because of crit surge, which makes it very, very strong. Dark Deal, this is our main way to maintain stamina. So 3,000 magicka. Now you saw that we have a little over 11k magicka in our pool, so we can actually cast this like 4 times because of recovery, the passive recovery we have, and because of the Constitution passive giving us more magicka back from heavy armor. But we can actually probably go up to like 5 times back to back, depending on those recovery ticks and the Constitution. So this is looking to give us like somewhere, like if you cast it 4 or 5 times, you're between 20 to 25k, 24k stam. Like, that's huge. It's almost our entire pool back just from casting this. Plus it heals us. So along with rally, crit surge, resolving vigor, all these things are healing us. So we are a freaking fortress on this one-hand shield bar. And this just allows us to keep blocking pretty much. So every time we're not taking a ton of damage, we cast this a bunch, we get stand back up, and we can keep blocking. So we can go like pretty close to full tank mode on this bar as well. Shuffle's key. The main reason is for the damage mitt from major evasion. The dodge chance is really, really good, but also allows you to purge roots. You can do that with dodge rolls now as well, but the main reason for this is just the mitigation from major evasion. But from time to time, purging roots, like after you break free, because we have Unchained from our champion points, this is pretty cheap at that point. So you can cast this just to purge roots rather than dodge rolling. It's very, very strong. And then, yeah, another one of our main heals, another heal, and then Overload. So Overload is interchangeable. You could swap this with Negate depending on whether or not your group has negates already. If you do, I suggest keeping on Overload, and you can then get access to your 3rd bar. You get Rearming Trap. This is used mainly for like locking people down. Like if you're kiting someone around a rock, you can drop a Rearming Trap. They get rooted, and then you can come back into them with like a Dawnbreak Execute combo. Same deal with Caltrops. You can use it for the same mobility patterns. If you're kiting people around, by the time they walk through the Caltrops, they're snared, and then you can come back in with a Dizzying Swing or Crit Rush, Weave Dizzying Swing, Execute combo, that kind of thing. That's basically what those 2 skills are used for. Now, Dark Deal, again, we don't want to be caught without it, so this is really strong to keep our stam up. Siege Shield. Now, this is an interesting one. This is for mainly when we're pushing keeps. I don't really need Magicka for much, aside from Dark Deal. So when we're getting, when we're on a ram or something, we have a bunch of oil over us, being able to be the one guy in our group that's popping a Siege Shield with a resource that he doesn't care about is great. So I can just put this, go into the Overload bar, put this up, fire and forget, and go back to my other skills and continue fighting and be good to go. And then Retreating Maneuver, or rapid maneuver. This isn't morphed yet, but I'll take retreating when it is. This is basically just to get around Cyrodiil. Not much more than that. I mean, you can use it to pre-buff your group when you're pushing through a breach so we can't be rooted or snared. So that's really helpful in that sense. Aside from that, I'm probably going to swap one of these skills out, like maybe Siege Shield, maybe Retreating Rapid Maneuver, maybe even Caltrops for Spell Symmetry from the Mages Guild once I unlock it, but I haven't yet because I don't like picking up lore books. I'm lazy. So that's it for the skills. We'll go into potions, food, that kind of thing now. So for potions, these are important. Again, Major Expedition is probably the biggest buff from this that allows us to just be more mobile. But immovability is absolutely mandatory on any potion in Cyrodiil, in my opinion. You need it to be able to pre-buff for engaging into large-scale fights when you're pushing through breaches, etc. When you're engaging out more enemy, when you're in outnumbered situations and they're constantly trying to CC you, because if you're CC'd, you're dead. That's pretty much the case in Cyrodiil all the time. So combining this with, the 7-second immunity from break free, like, you can completely remove a lot of the incoming CCs from you, and this is really key, especially when we're proccing Clever Alchemist, because I don't have the passive right now because I haven't unlocked Alchemy yet, but once you get medicinal use, this goes up to like 15 seconds, and conveniently enough, Clever Alchemist lasts for 15 seconds. So when you proc this, you're immovable the whole time. So your Dawnbreakers hit harder. They can't stop. They can't CC you to prevent them, and you can just kind of roll right through their groups and just be a giant nuisance and just murder a bunch of people. It's fantastic. Okay, so for Bone Pirate, it's really important. You have to run Dubious Command Throne. It's got the perfect stats for the build, first of all. Max health, max stam recovery. Those are our main stats that we're looking for. But the fact that it's a drink is the most important part because, again, we can't use the 5-piece on Bone Pirate unless we have a drink active. So this is absolutely key. This you have to run. So the last thing, pretty much, I've talked about, all the gear, potions, food, play style kind of stuff, slight touch on strategy with this build, and some other skills you can swap out. But the last thing is the champion points. So we'll get into the tower now. So Warlord and Tumbling, these are really key. These are probably the most important defensive, in quotes, resource management passives that you have. And the reason is because if you're stunned, you're dead. If you can't dodge roll out of big Destra ults or negates, you're dead. So those are absolutely key to help with that because we do those things a lot. Sprinter, this is going to help because we do sprint a lot. We are extremely mobile. We have major and minor expedition access on this build. We're constantly moving, so this helps big time with the Stam sustain from those things. And then Mooncalf and Tenacity. So Mooncalf, again, helps with the Bone Pirate and the Dubious Command Throne. It buffs our Stam recovery up to a pretty decent level because of those two things. But Tenacity is actually really key. So when you're using things like Dawnbreaker or Dizzying Swing, even your executes, the reverse slice, you can weave heavy attacks in between all of those things. And each heavy attack that you're weaving, once you get comfortable weaving those heavy attacks in between, is going to restore Stam, and it restores a lot of Stam for this build, which is nice because you're in both heavy armor plus you get Tenacity, so you're restoring a fairly large amount just from those two things. But yeah, so the idea behind weaving a heavy attack is basically you're holding down the heavy attack button, and while you're actually going in for the heavy attack, you tap your dizzying swing skill. So as soon as the heavy attack lands, the dizzying swing skill immediately starts firing behind it. It reduces just a little bit of time. It's not quite like full-on animation canceling, but in this case, it's kind of just an efficient weave with heavy attacks. I can give an example of that real quick, actually. I don't want to hit this thing too hard because it might actually die with one shot. So there we go. And then see, as soon as that fired, the dizzying swing fired, which is exactly what we want to do. Let's see if we can find another Another ad around here. Here we go. Now we're going to give a quick example of a Dawnbreak execute combo. If the Dawnbreak doesn't kill this thing in one shot anyway, let's see. So 14k Dawnbreaker there, not a crit. So on a crit, that thing's going to be pushing 28, 29k probably because of our extra crit damage. So, and that's on an ad. So 28, 29k, and they cut that in half. So 15. I've gotten up to upward of 18k Dawnbreakers when they're empowered before. So you can hit ridiculously hard with a Dawnbreaker. People that are 23k health are just going to be dead after an execute. It's very, very strong. That's pretty much it for the build, guys. I mean, the only thing you can do to really deck yourself out anymore, I am an orc. I would suggest orc for this build to get more. Everything we do is melee pretty much, so more damage. But yeah, give yourself a sweet beard. You look sick. That's it. Have a good one.